This is a continued discussion from the previous episode of Nose to Tail, a podcast where we explore the world of aviation lifecycle solutions, insights, and more. Presented by Jet Midwest.
So maybe not everybody's aware, but at one point in time, you were flying around in your own little airplane.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about the equipment you were operating at the time? And maybe one of your more memorable flights, maybe you could fill us in on how that might have gone.
One time I was landing at your facility in the middle of this massive windstorm. It had to have been like a 40-knot crosswind. So I had a Piper Meridian single-engine turboprop. So it was a pretty light little plane, and landing this massive crab angle at Kansas City International was that was a bit of a challenge.
Do you miss flying?
Not really. You know, I used to fly a lot more because we had a mission. I was tearing down airplanes and flying around visiting customers all over the country. Anywhere in the country I had to flew myself. But I don't do that anymore. I don't have that requirement anymore. So I just don't get the reps, the practice that I need.
Well, that's good. So you got rid of your airplane, and then I'm sure you'll find a new toy at some point in your life, right?
Yeah, I think, I build businesses. That's what I do. That's what I've always done. So, the future of where we go from here is really what I'm interested in. And how do we change the market? How do we change the way that things are bought, right? AI is the buzzword these days, right? That's the blockchain or the 3D TV or the whatever, the fad, right? So I kind of have a different view of AI than most people. I don't think it's a cure-all. I don't think it's the single answer that's going to change everybody's lives in aviation, especially when it comes around to inventory planning, which is where most of the applications seem to be focused these days. At the end of the day, there's 2 million parts on a 777, and no machine learning is going to accurately predict when a bracket is going to fail, exactly when something's going to corrode, and all it can do is predict and say, you should have this in stock. So whether it's good old-fashioned predictive buying, which you can do with basic data, or it's something that's driven by AI, at the end of the day, it's a recommended stock list.
Right.
And inevitably, the way aviation works, you're going to use some of that, some of it you're not, and some of it that you didn't think you were going to need, you're going to need. And in that case, it's going to be a lot, right? So AI might improve that accuracy, that predictive buying a bit, but at the end of the day, we feel that the market's moving more towards a just-in-time, kind of spot market, what we call the spot market. And I think that having a very efficient spot market that can get any part anywhere in the world in 48 hours, that achieves the goal that the airlines and the MROs are looking for, which is to reduce the amount of stock they have on the shelf. At the end of the day, they don't want to build inventories. They don't want to build surplus. They want to carry the minimum amount of stock that they can. So providing a hyper efficient spot market where you can go, you can go to one place and have access to all the OEMs, have access to as much inventory as possible in one place where it's available in 48 hours. We feel like that's the future of parts consumption in the aerospace market, less so than a machine that's going to try to predict, most likely incorrectly, when things are going to fail. Works a little bit better with rotables, but as far as consumables are concerned, we think that's what the future is. So that's really what we're building in our platform.
Very cool. Very cool. So you have notoriously good events that you put together at MRO every year.
Yeah.
And we'll talk in a few minutes maybe about the one tonight, but maybe we can talk about which one has been your favorite so far. Give us a little spotlight on what that is. And I think the other spotlight is, because it really is about aviation, you have a philosophy about why you put on events at the scale you do.
Yep.
And I think that would be good for people to hear and understand from a business marketing standpoint, maybe what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, most people just think I'm crazy, and I think that that's probably true to some extent. But the reality is that our business is a little bit different than most in that because we have so many transactions happening, because we have so much inventory available in one place, the brand name, getting that brand name out there and repetition in the market, that's the biggest value. And we open it up to everybody, competitors, basically anybody at the show can go. Technically, you come get a wristband, but show up with an aviation business card or your badge and you're getting into the show. And we want the brand name DASI be repeated constantly today and all day tomorrow. What did you do last night? Where did you go? And the number of times that just in normal conversation that our brand name gets mentioned over today, tomorrow, and in the build-up in the weeks prior, just brand exposure. And last year was pretty cool. I think we did a Depeche Mode cover band And we had T-shirts on that were a big hit that say DASI says relax. We had people wanting to buy those T-shirts, which we didn't really plan on. But that was a really fun party. But this year is something really special. We're celebrating a couple different things. It's our 31st year. We didn't really do a 30-year celebration last year, so we're kind of celebrating 30 years this year. And also, we had an equity transaction this year. We've got some great new partners in Marubeni Aviation. So this is kind of a big deal for us. So we totally went over the top this year. We're spending 4 times what we normally do. And we have the Blues Brothers performing tonight. And it's not a cover band. It's Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi. And it's really cool. They're super psyched about it. They're only doing 4 shows this year, and this is one of them. And all their friends and family are coming because this is a big deal for them to do this in Chicago, in their hometown. And yeah, we're looking forward. I just heard the governor's coming. So it's going to be a really, really fun show.
That's awesome. I have to bring my sunglasses.
Yeah.
That way I blend in okay. I got the black suit on, so
Yeah.
I think I'm good to go there. I always ask everybody what their favorite aircraft is and why, and I get lots of good answers, but I'd love to hear from you of what it is and why it's so important maybe to you, maybe part of your career.
Sentimentally, it's the L-1011, the biggest commercial flop in aviation, right? But it's a beautiful airplane, and it was a commercial aircraft that was designed and built to military spec. The thing was super indestructible and way ahead of its time in its avionics and its systems, which made it a beast to maintain and contributed to its financial demise. But I grew up flying on that plane. Eastern had the biggest fleet. I think they were the launch customer for the L-1011, if I'm not mistaken, with Jet Midwest. One of my early deals before we switched over to consumables, Jet Midwest and Paul and I bought a bunch of Delta's fleet of L-1011s and tore those down. And for a good long while, DASI was the L-1011 supplier in the market. So that was fun. So I think there's always a soft spot in my heart for that airplane.
That's awesome. I remember going through some records one time and they were showing the fuel consumption burn, right? They have the chart that shows how the efficiency is. And I forget the exact number, but you see the efficiency nice and plateaued out and it gets to a certain hour limit, like 12, and it just drops right off because those engines were less than fuel efficient. They were having to tanker if they had to go past that hour limit. But that's awesome. I do remember those airplanes. One of those airplanes, I believe in a Mojave storm, ended up with its ass down and nose up in the air because of that tail engine.
I was trying to leave.
Yeah, it was definitely trying to get out of the desert.
And one of those planes was the prop plane in the TV show Lost.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Things I've learned. Did you get paid on that one?
Paul did. I don't think that.
You probably.
Yeah, I think that
you didn't kick back nothing?
No.
No?
I'm going to take that up with him, actually.
Yeah, you might need to do that. Well, John, listen, I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to leave the folks with here at MRO or on the Nose to Tail podcast that you'd like them to hear about what's going on, maybe in aviation, maybe not? What else is maybe happening?
I'm curious to hear people's opinions of where the market's going and maybe ask you, where do you think the market's going? Where are we in the cycle?
I certainly, from the wide body side, I think is probably where I've got the most exposure. There was a lot of capacity removed from the market in the last handful of years for various reasons. And we've seen a huge resurgence in that side. And then at the same time that there's not a product coming back out from Boeing and Airbus at a pace to replace those. And I'm unsure of how that's going to impact things 5 years from now. And the supply chain on engine components really worries me, that we're not getting enough material in to service the engines and get these airplanes. In fact, all component really level rotables, that the parts aren't being made. And I don't know if that's a loss of capacity from Asia post-COVID, where places shut down and they just haven't come back, or if there's just a focus only on the new generation of aircraft.
Right.
But I certainly, for the next handful of years, the supply chain's going to take a while to catch back up to really where I think it needs to be. You're probably more in tune with the narrow body market. What are you seeing there?
So, I think there was certainly a disruption in the supply chain, obviously, during COVID, but that also bred panic buying, right? So think about what happened with toilet paper back in,
Sure.
Anyway, it was all of a sudden you couldn't find toilet paper and everyone was just buying whatever they could find. And I think that there's a bit of that happened post-pandemic where you had a bit of artificial demand where people were panicking that I need to have 2 starters in stock, not 1, or I need to have 20 bearings in stock, not 10, because we don't know if we're going to be able to restock. So I think there was an inflation of demand that happened that is starting to work itself out of the market. That's kind of our sense. We don't see as big of a demand on piece parts, especially MRO piece parts, as we did 6-8 months ago.
Interesting.
And I think that that's mostly because inventories have been built back up, right? And now they have surplus, and okay, do we really need to maintain this stock level because they're readily available again? So I think that that's kind of playing itself out in the market, both wide body and narrow body. I think just, we're talking about MRO components.
Well, very good. Well, John, I appreciate you coming in.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody out there, for watching the Nose to Tail podcast here at MRO in Chicago. John, I look forward to watching the Blues Brothers tonight and having a few cocktails with my sunglasses on. If I start making a fool of myself, I'll expect you to step in and help me out, all right?
I'm expecting to have to do that.
All right, fair enough. Thanks again, John, and thanks to all you out there watching.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Nose to Tail. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Presented by Jet Midwest.